Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports, the Monday edition of Bears Victory Monday edition. Yes, it is. We are live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, you can catch other 4 live shows throughout the week. You can listen and watch them at any time. You have to miss them, you can go back and listen to them right on our Sports Zone Chicago app. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can find them on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and give them a follow today. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports? You can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes. You ready? WARR on Anchor. Once again, that's War on Anchor on the podcast platforms. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, I've given Lakeena full bolt to give you fools to bill and be a boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we get started, we must remind you that you can now catch Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV. That's right. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku television. If you already have a Roku TV, just tap into the sports folder and download the Sports Zone Chicago app that way. If you don't have a Roku TV, that's okay. I know you have a streaming device or two laying around. iPad, iTouch, iPhone, Chromebook, laptop, your personal PC. Wherever those devices are, just download the Roku TV app today and tap into the sports section and download Sports Zone Chicago that way. So get with the program and join the squad. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand. Lakeena, let's kick off this Bears Victory Monday edition of Second City Sports as we return for the first hour of our Monday show, the NFL Bears Power Hour. Lakeena, the Bears era of Matt Eberflus and Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace, good grief. Ryan Poles got out to a good start yesterday. They defeated the San Francisco 49ers at the lakefront by the score of 19-10. Justin Fields, 8 of 17, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns in the pick, with a quarterback rated of 85.7. Khalil Herbert led the Bears in rushing yards with 45. Dante Pettis led the Bears in receiving with 51. He had that 1 touchdown catch in the second half, and the defense did their thing with 4 forced fumbles and 2 sacks. Lakeena, as we said all preseason, this is the beginning of the steps of holy, which lead us to a championship. But before we get down that road, this is the season to see progress and to see the beginnings of a building of hopefully a championship franchise. We saw that yesterday in the second half. The first half was kind of ugly. The offense was ugly. The defense was okay. But in the second half, we saw some adjustments, and the Bears turned that game around and went in their favor.
Well, look, here's the thing. I know nobody wants to. I know everybody's on a high. Bears Victory Monday, blah, blah, blah. Slip and slide. Hey, look, I'm all for slip and slides, fun. And look, I'm all for fun. Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's fine. But let's also remember, too, that the first half was terrible. Like, you saw some of the remnants of the defense played pretty well. Dominique Robinson, have a day. That was great. But the offense looked terrible. And yes, the second half, yes, you make adjustments and such or whatever. But they benefited from bad penalties by the 49ers. That great touchdown pass for Justin Fields to Dante Pettis. Of course, showing a little bit, showing off for his former team because he played for the 49ers. But here's the thing. That would not have happened had they not got an extra set of downs thanks to a penalty. And look, I believe what Nick Bosa said in interviews afterwards. The 49ers beat themselves, and the Bears benefited from that. And also, too, and I think this is another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. I'm a little surprised they're not talking about it, but Earl Mitchell got hurt. at the beginning of the. I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to see like where did he actually get hurt at? But I guess he hurt his knee. I don't know if he got got hurt his knee getting tackled or and this and that. But he had 42 rushing yards already. He was moving the chains for the 49ers. And once he got hurt, the wheels kind of fell off. I mean, Debo Samuel, he did what he did and such, but but Mitchell was the one that kept the chains moving for the 49ers. Once he got hurt, that all kind of fell apart as well. So yeah, the Bears won, fine, dandy. Yeah, it was the first time winning their opener since 2013, I should say. But they benefit from a lot of the mistakes for the 49ers. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, that's what a good team does. I'm not suggesting the Bears are going to the Super Bowl. We're not suggesting they're going to make a deep playoff run.
I'll tell Bears Twitter that's it.
Well, I'm kind of jumping on your bandwagon. Well, we said this all preseason. Can they be a surprise team? Sure. I don't see it just yet, and that's what good teams do. They take advantage of the other team's mistakes, and that's what the Bears did yesterday. The other issue that we talked about, Lakeena, was discipline. We didn't see that under the last 3 years under the old head coach Matt Nagy. We saw it yesterday with Matt Eberflus. You saw it during the preseason. You saw it yesterday. 0 penalties in the second half. They only had 3 total for the game. As you just mentioned, the 49ers were the ones making the mistakes with the false starts in the turnover. So the Bears stayed disciplined, and they went into their gaps defensively, and they shut down the running game afterwards. And shout out to our guy, Money Earning Mount Vernon Fairley. He says, is it me or have we been seeing the Bears going against a Packers team after a bad loss for the last few seasons? Yeah, I know the Packers are early 9-point favorite. We'll get into that matchup on our next show on Friday. But yesterday, the Bears were very disciplined. Lakeena, 3 penalties total. When was the last time you saw a Bears team with 3 penalties or less for the entire game? It's been a long time. So I'm enjoying it for what it is. And we'll see. The Bears still has some work to do. Obviously, they have some mistakes to clean up. Like you mentioned, the offense was terrible in the first half, outside of the few bright spots with David Montgomery with the running game. But it all picked up in the second half because of the 49ers mistakes. Sometimes you're going to win games in this league ugly, taking advantage of the other team's mistakes. It's nice to see the Bears do that this time, or instead of being on the other end, giving the ball away and doing dumb stuff and letting the other teams take advantage.
Here's the thing, though. I saw all the quotes from Roquan Smith and Darnell Mooney and a few others saying that, oh, well, we're being disrespected. No one respects us, blah, blah, blah. Look, if you want to use that as a motivation, fine. I'm all, that's okay if that works for you. But I've been seeing a lot of Bears, various Bears players over the years using these particular things as sort of motivation. And it didn't work out well. So in the end, I've seen this movie before. You want to play the district, no one's respecting us or whatever, no one's expecting nothing from us. You want to play that off that motivation, fine. But again, you're not there yet. I don't want to see Justin Fields running for his life, getting out of the pocket and stuff. Yes, he's made it work, but it's gonna get to a point where he's gonna, either gets his shoulder separated or God forbid his knee gets hurt. I mean, that O-line still has issues. And look, the defense on the defensive side, look, I think that secondary is still a little bit questionable. I think the weather kind of prevented that from making any sort of, things, chances going downfield and such. We'll talk about on the 49ers side in a second, because there have been some stuff that have come up that I don't think, especially if they, don't pick it up these next couple of weeks. But as far as the Bears are concerned, okay, you're 1-0, fine. I want to see more. You're not there yet.
Do you agree with Lakeena? You're pessimistic about the victory yesterday, or you like yours truly? You take it for what it is and get ready next week for Green Bay. We want to see your comments. Go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you as you're listening to the Monday edition, the Bears Victory Monday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena, on the flip side, I'm with you about the offensive line. We know that they still have some work to do. They still have some gelling to do. Heaven forbid they don't have any rash of injuries that hopefully it does not come along their way. I think eventually the offensive line will be fine. They need to get better, as you mentioned, in the pass protection. We said that during the preseason, as Justin Fields will be running for his life a whole lot more than we expect. But in as far as the running game is concerned, I thought they got better, especially in that second half when the defense of the 49ers were starting to wear down. You saw Khalil Herbert, he didn't bust out as many long runs as expected, but they ran the ball effectively. Khalil Herbert was awarded with a touchdown to extend that lead in the fourth quarter. Now, on the flip side, the special teams, Cairo Santos, and yes, you could blame it on the weather partially, but missing 2 out of your 3 extra points, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut, especially a team that's trying to grow and form an identity. And you need to learn how to win close games. Those going to come and bite you, and you know what, later on down the road. We saw Cody Parkey, and you saw what happened back in 2018. We won't go down that road again. But the special teams, especially in the kicking department, they needs to be cleaned up. I thought the defense was very good. Jaquan Brisker, we talked about him during the draft. Lakeena, shout out to Will DeWitt from CHL Chicago. He covers the Bears for them. And our guy DJ Turnby from the Fundamental Sports Show on WVON here in Chicago. They raved about this kid. We talked about him during the preseason. I thought he had a good game yesterday. Along, like you said, with Dominique Robinson. Rocross Smith was very good in coverage yesterday. And also, too, I thought that defensive line really held their own, especially in that second half where they forced Trey Lance to play quarterback instead of him running all over the place like he did in the first half.
Well, and I want to take issue with what you said about being a pessimist. Okay, these are me stating facts. It's not like about me, your so-called hater being pessimistic. These are facts. All right. Just because some of y'all aren't ready to have that conversation, don't come up at me saying that. Oh well, how dare you say you should be happy for the win? I saw that yesterday on a couple of people were actually bringing up what I just said. And people say, well, shut up, such and such. You should be happy for the win. Be happy. Shut up and be happy. No, these are mistakes. They still have to clean this stuff up. And yeah, look, they did what you're supposed to do in the second half. Look, they made adjustments. Yes, they pressured Lance a little bit more, make him have to, pass it and such. And that's fine. But also, too, there's still a lot of things to be, to clean up. And I'm already seeing people say, oh, they're going to win the division or they're going to go to the playoffs and blah, blah, blah. Let's temper the expectations a little bit, folks, okay? That's all I say on that. Now, as far as, look, there were some bright spots. Like I said, Robinson was really good. And, Kyler Gordon had a couple of nice stops as well. I mean, okay, yeah, great. That's fantastic. But again, you need to concentrate a little bit more. Like I said before, on the defensive side, look, it looks like we're going to be synced because we see this movie again before. That defense is going to keep them in games. That's fine. But again, if you're trying to be a contender, I'm doing air quotes, contending, you need your offense to kind of you need your offense to score points too. The defense, and again, we've seen this movie multiple times over the years. It can only get you so far. You need to get it together on the offensive side. Like I said, I don't want Fields to get hurt. I don't. So again, like I said, let's wrap this up because I want to talk about the other games in the league because there were actually a couple of interesting results last night and yesterday. But to cap out this Bears discussion, look, fine, great, look, celebrate, go ahead, it's fine. Look, yeah, I was not a believer that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Look, this team could still end up winning only 5 or 6 games. But I also think that people need to remember that are they the worst team in the league? No, but they're not up there yet. They're not even a mediocre team just yet.
Your offensive leaders for the San Francisco 49ers. Trey Lance had 164 yards passing. Trey Lance also led the team in rushing with 54 yards, and Jawan Jennings had 4 catches for 62 yards. Lakeena, the offense looked great for San Francisco in that first half, but in the second half, as you mentioned, the defense made some adjustments and stepped up. Deebo Samuel, he picked up where he left off last year in that first half, but I think after that turnover created by Jalen Johnson and Jaquan Brisker picked up that fumble, I thought it turned in the other direction for Deebo Samuel. He wasn't as effective in the second half, but the 49ers, I thought, had a good game plan to start the game. They scored the first 10 points of the game, but after that, the Bears made adjustments, and good night, Gracie.
Well, but also, too, you also got to remember, too, I think they went away from their game plan and such. They didn't, like I said, once. And I'm going to keep saying that once Mitchell got hurt, that's when things started to turn. Again, I know people don't want to have that conversation, but it did because he was actually running the ball pretty well against that Bears front seven. So, look, you can say there were multiple factors here. Could have the weather have been played a factor too? Sure. I mean, like a girl K. Rudy said from K-Ron 4 News in the Bay Area, a lot of these guys have not, on the 49ers side, have not practiced in the rain all year. All season so far, the first couple months. So, it's and look, it is what it is. But again, look, our buddy Lamont Scott said we can't get happy with one win on a bad field, and yeah, he's right. That saw was terrible. Like that saw was awful. So it was like, all things being equal, yeah, they had to put on it too. But you guys, that might have been how Mitchell got hurt. But again, that's a whole different scenario here.
Yeah, I was watching the pregame both locally and nationally here in Chicago. Of course, our good friends Caitlin Sharkey, Cassie Carlson, yeah, and others. They were showing live film and footage of the field. And remember, that field was covered in tarp until around 10:30-ish Chicago time. That was 90 minutes before kickoff. And then once that tarp was left off the field, it looks like the field was even worse. And then once it got into the game, the rain did let up a little bit until the fourth quarter, and it started to do the heavy downpour. That field was terrible. I know they were raking it about 4 or 5 times. It just looked ugly, but the Bears took advantage of it and they won the game. So you can't get mad at that.
Well, no,
And thank goodness no serious injuries came out on the Bears side because of it.
No, you can't get mad at it, but you can't look past it either. And I think that's going to be the key issue here. So we're going to take a really quick break. We're going to talk about the rest of the games from week 1, including a couple of upsets, some dominating performances, and a whole lot more. Lakeena McGee, Sidney Brown, SZC Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. More NFL talk right after this.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Bears Victory Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
We have the rest of the NFL action from week 1 from yesterday that we have to go over. But if you still have comments on yesterday's Bears game, you can go to Sports on Chicago's Facebook page or Sports on Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. As always, Lakeena, there are other action from around the league from yesterday for the first Sunday of the new 2022 season. Let us get it started with the New Orleans Saints coming from 16 points down to defeat the Atlanta Falcons 27-26. Jameis Winston 23 of 34, 269 yards and 2 touchdown passes. He had over 140 yards and 2 touchdown passes in the second half alone. Former Bear Cordell Patterson for the Falcons, 22 carries, 120 yards and a touchdown. And Jarvis Landry for New Orleans in his Saints debut, 7 catches for 114 yards. And let's not forget Michael Thomas, who missed all of last year due to injury, the Saints star wide receiver. He had those 2 receiving touchdowns yesterday in the comeback victory.
Oh yeah, Atlanta blowing a big lead. Yeah, there's a shocker. Look, I mean, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, there was no excuses for Atlanta losing this game the way they did. I mean, they dominated the Saints, from the start. But then the fourth quarter, they started with the comebacks and such. This is by, wasting a good performance by their defense. The Falcons defense, they sacked Jameis Winston 4 times, and they, again, this is sort of the same thing that happened during the Super Bowl a few years back. They didn't run the ball like they should have, and they kept the Saints in it, and that's how they were able to pull it off. But this is more about the Falcons losing the game than the Saints winning it, because the Falcons should have won this game.
The Pittsburgh Steelers last year, they went into Buffalo and shocked the Bills on opening weekend. This year, we told you on Friday it could be a possibility. Yours truly, Christine and Lakeena, picked the Bengals. The Steelers do it again this year to start off 2022. They defeated the Bengals 23-20. There was 3 mixed kicks in the game. There was a bunch of penalties, bunch of turnovers. Thank you, Joe Burrow, who's on my fantasy team, who screwed me over yesterday. But that's a whole nother story. But speaking of the game itself, Joe Burrow, 33 of 53, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions and a lost fumble. Joe Mixon for Cincinnati, 27 carries, 82 yards. Jamar Chase, who had 2 touchdowns taken away from him because he was out of bounds, still had a great game individually. 10 catches, 129 yards, and that touchdown which forced overtime because your kicker decided to miss an extra point.
Yeah, that whole game. Yeah, that whole game was strange from basically the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. I mean, TJ Watt got hurt. We'll see how much time he misses, and a couple other guys got. They chased Claypool got hurt as well. So it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, yeah, this is definitely a typical Steelers Bengals sort of thing where missed kicks and everything else, and I don't know what the heck happened there, but also sort of like the big thing, and you're buried the lead here, Sid. Burrow was sacked 7 times. That was a big issue. That's been a big issue for that Bengals offense. That O-line is terrible. You thought the Bears O-line was bad. Well, the Bengals said, "Hey, hold my beer." 7 sacks. Look, you got to keep them upright. That's not gonna work. Super Bowl hangover. Like I said, I think that a lot of people are forgetting that people are not afraid of the Bengals anymore. So this is a big win by the Steelers, a good division win by them. I mean, can they, be right there for the AFC North? Sure, but I don't think they're there yet either. Mitch Trubisky had a nice showing. No interceptions, threw for a touchdown, kept it moving. Harris got hurt, so I think that's going to be a thing that's going to be looked up as well. So, we'll see what happens with the Steelers. But yeah, the Bengals, I don't want to say they're in trouble, but they need to up that O-line again.
Yeah. Like I said, the Steelers' victory yesterday came at a cost. Let's go to Detroit. The Philadelphia Eagles get by the Detroit Lions 38-35. The Eagles led by 17 points late in the third quarter. The Lions did make a comeback, but it was too little, too late. Jalen Hurts 18-32, 243 yards passing. DeAndre Swift ran the ball well for Detroit, 15 carries, 144 yards in the score. A.J. Brown, in his debut as a Philadelphia Eagle, had 10 catches, 155 yards. And James Bradbury had a pick 6 return for a score for Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's interesting that this game, because the Lions they still right there, but the Eagles kind of show you they're one of the favorites in the NFC East, and they showed you why. Not the flashiest game. This is a very high scoring game. The Lions kept it very close. They scored 14 unanswered in the fourth, but they were able to kind of hold off the Lions. The Eagles did. So again, they got to clean up. I think AJ Brown did what he's supposed to do and whatnot. But the Eagles need to work on their defense because they gave up a lot of late points. So that's you can't do that if you're trying to win the division. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I was watching the majority of this game live via this computer screen. Shout out to Adam Amin, Chicago Bulls TV announcer. Of course, he does the games for Fox, and he did a great job with Mark Schlereth yesterday. And he kind of made that same point toward the end of the game that the Eagles defense needed to tighten up a bit. So Philadelphia takes the opening day win on the road. Let's go to South Beach. The Miami Dolphins get by the New England Patriots 27. Tua Tagovailoa 23 of 33, 270 yards and a touchdown. Demetrius Harris for New England. Sorry about that. 9 carries for 48 yards. And Tyreek Hill in his debut in the Dolphins uniform, 8 catches for 94 yards.
Yeah, the big story here was that Mac Jones was hurt, back spasm. So the X-rays were negative, but you're kind of wondering like, okay, things are kind of starting to fall off the Harris trenches here for Green Bay. I mean, for New England, but Tua had a good showing. He made some questionable decisions, but that new offense, he did throw for 270 yards and whatnot. Tyreek Hill did what he did his thing. 94 yards. He was raving about Coach Mike McDaniel after the game, and it was really the Dolphins defense that kind of sort of like propelled them. And look, just the Patriots couldn't get anything going offensively, so I think that didn't help for them as well. Now they need to kind of hang on to the ball. Talk about the Dolphins a little bit better. I mean, so a few too many fumbles for my liking, but again, not the best performance, but you'll take it if you're a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, same here. That's kind of the vibe that I got looking at. I did turn to this game a couple of times via the red zone in this computer screen. And the Dolphins, it wasn't their best performance, but they did enough to get by. And the Patriots, they just couldn't get nothing going offensively. And the defense did what it could to keep themselves in it, but it just wasn't working for the Patriots. And if I was a New England Patriots player right now at the facility, I do not want to be in that film room with Bill Belichick, or as we call him on this show, Bill Belichick, because that performance was terrible yesterday. Let's go to New Jersey, Lakeena. The Baltimore Ravens get it done by defeating the Zach Wilson-less New York Jets 24-9. Joe Flacco 37 of 59, 307 yards and a touchdown. Carter, the running back for the Jets, 10 carries for 60 yards. And the Davis, star wide receiver for the Jets, 6 catches for 77 yards. Lakeena, it was Corey Davis, I should say, for the Jets, 6 catches, 77 yards. But it was all about Lamar Jackson yesterday for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on himself. Apparently, he turned down a $250 million contract with about $180 million guarantee. Again, that's if you believe a lot of the reports that are coming out from various non-sources, not with him or the Ravens. Threw for 213 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also rushed for 17. Again, they were all some of their guys. Ronnie Stanley was out. I know J.K. Dobbins was out. I know they lost Juwan James. Who looks like a torn Achilles, which he's had a rough last few years and such, but they really didn't need them against the Jets. I mean, they are still the Jets, unfortunately. So they really, again, not the flashiest performance by the Ravens, but you'll take it. I mean, he really did. Marcus Williams had an interception. That kind of helped that a little bit too. But again, it is what it is. You'll take the win if you're the Ravens.
The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Washington Commanders did battle in D.C. yesterday. I understand most of you that watched the Bears game yesterday were switched over to the conclusion of this game yesterday. The Washington Commanders started off slow, but hung on at the end for a 28-22 victory. Carson Wentz in his Washington debut, 27 of 41, 313 yards and 4 touchdown passes. James Robinson for the Jaguars ran the ball 11 times, 66 yards and a score. And Christian Kirk in his Jaguars debut, 6 catches for 117 yards. Lakeena, Trevor Lawrence in the Jaguars offense started out cold, but they picked it up in the second half. But his tendencies for turning the ball over, it came to bite him in the end.
Yeah, it did. And unfortunately, like I said, they tried to get it going, but I guess they were in too big of a hole. And also, too, give Carson Wentz some credit. He threw a couple of big touchdowns that definitely propelled that. They didn't hang on.
He stunk it up early too. I did watch some of this game.
But he did. But like I said, he picked it up too. And like I said, he threw a couple of big TD passes to kind of help there, for that in that cause too. But I mean, look, Terry McLaurin, did what, got that big money. Caught one of those touchdown passes. Curtis Samuel, same thing, caught a touchdown pass. Jahan Dotson, through, caught a couple of those passes as well.
Mhm.
And look, the Jaguars, I mean, look, if you want to be taken seriously, it'd be right there as a serious contender for one of those wild card spots. That's what some people think that they can be. You need to kind of pick it up, and your defense, really kind of helped you
Mhm.
left them hanging as well. So despite Devin Lloyd having 11 tackles and such, but they didn't force, they had a couple of interceptions, but unfortunately they
Mhm.
really, they really a little bit with it, but they couldn't make the stuff that they needed too late.
The Cleveland Browns opening day losing streak is now over. The Browns get it done with a Cade York 58-yard field goal at the horn to defeat the Carolina Panthers 26-24. Baker Mayfield for Carolina against his former team 16-27, 235 yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb for the Browns had 22 carries for 141 yards. Robbie Anderson for Carolina had 5 catches, 102 yards and the score. Lakeena, the Browns came out on fire in the first half, scoring 17 of the 24 first half points. Carolina scored 17 fourth quarter points, took the lead briefly, but Cleveland did what they had to do at the end to hang on to a victory. And I don't know, shout out to our guy Spiro Diaz who called the game for CBS yesterday. Did you see this statistic for yards per run? I believe Nick Chubb is the tie for second all time, next to Walter Payton and Barry Sanders and Gale Sayers.
Yep.
That is astonishing.
Yeah, it's amazing what he's done, and they'll shout out to anybody who has him on their fantasy team. I don't, but shout out to those that don't. I'm sure going to be facing whoever on the league I'm on. I'll be facing him later on this year. But I mean, look, the Panthers defense let them down. I mean, they look, Mayfield wanted to win this game and wanted to stick it to his former team, and unfortunately, their defense, they gave up too many plays, too many rushing. Look, Brissett, shows you why he's been around for a long time. Made those big plays late. They got him in field goal range. I love the fact that the Browns Twitter account sort of say, "Hey, this is why you draft a kicker." I'm like, slow your roll, folks. I mean, just because in this case it worked, don't that's not something that is a wise. Yes, you lucked out with K. York was actually a really good kicker coming out of college. So let's slow your roll there. But I mean. I know the Panthers are going to be smarting this one. They were actually booed. They were actually booed because of the fact that, Cleveland kind of dominated in the second quarter, but they got back in there. The crowd got back into it. But like I said, the defense kind of let them down late. They gave too many big plays.
Yeah, Cade York, as you mentioned, Lakeena, the one who kicked the game winner for Cleveland. I saw this statistic before he kicked the game-winning field goal. CBS flashed it up. He was 15 of 19 from 50 yards or more out in his college career. That is just amazing. So we shouldn't have been surprised at what happened yesterday. So the Browns pick up the victory on the road against the Panthers. Now, the last of the early games, the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans went to a 20-20 tie. That's right. There's not a mistypo here. They ended up in a 20-20 tie. Lakeena, remember I told you on Friday to pick the Houston Texans in the points? Well, they accomplished that. And as far as the statistics are concerned, Matt Ryan, in his debut in the Colts uniform, he was 32 of 50 for 352 yards and a touchdown and a bad interception toward the end of that first half. I was watching that play live. Jonathan Taylor for the Colts, 31 carries, 161 yards and a score. And Michael Pittman Jr. for the Colts, he had 9 receptions for 121 yards and the score.
This tie could kind of, especially the Colts are right there, competing for the AFC South. This could come back to bite them in the butt. So I think that's a whole different mindset there. Ryan, because of first QB to have his debut game result in a tie, since Kyler Murray did it in his rookie season, back in 2019 when they tied with the Lions, 27. But this one is sort of was just weird. Like the ending was kind of just weird. They decided the Texans, of course, Lovie Smith is sort of his mantra. He played for the tie. What he could have, I guess he didn't believe in his kicker, so they felt that it was sort of, again, the game was just strange. I mean, Indy scored 17 unanswered in the fourth, and that's how they got into this situation too. So that whole thing was just, a strange game to watch. But I don't know. I mean, look, Jonathan Taylor 161 yards, but it's like this is sort of one of those. This could be a tie that could help the Colts in the end, or it might actually hurt the Colts, I should say, in the end. So we'll have to wait and see as the season goes. But this was a strange, and a litany of strange results and games and such.
You listen to Second City Sports on the Monday edition of Bears Victory Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena as we take you around the league for week 1 action that took place yesterday. Now let's get to the late games. The New York Football Giants stunned everyone, including yours truly, as they defeat the Tennessee Titans 21-20. They went for 2 at the end, successfully converted, and the Tennessee Titans missed the chance to win the game by missing a field goal. Ryan Tannehill for the Titans was 20 of 33, 266 yards and 2 touchdown passes. It was the Saquon Barkley show for the Giants, 18 carries, 164 yards, and a big touchdown in the fourth quarter. And Sterling Shepard, we haven't heard that name in a while. He's their stud wide receiver for the Giants. 2 catches, 71 yards and a score.
Yeah, they went for 2, the Giants did, after scoring that game-tying touchdown. Now, look, again, this is one of those instances where, look, it worked. But if it hadn't worked, people would be calling Brian Daboll nuts. So, look, in this case, it actually worked for him. So, you go with the odds sometimes. Look, they went for it and they won. And luckily for them, the Titans missed it from 3. So, yeah, so it's definitely kind of one of those things where, again, same thing with the Titans. This could be one of those losses that come back to bite in the butt in the end when it comes to tiebreakers.
Yep, I turned to that game a couple of times, Lakeena. It was a dud, as you say, as you would say. But I know most of the people didn't catch the halftime show from this game. But Kurt Menefee asked Jimmy Johnson, "What about the Giants' performance in the first half? Because they were shut out in the first half." He said, "I know the New York Jimmy Johnson talking. I know that the Giants had the second worst salary cap situation in the league, but you got to wait till next year." Kurt looked at him like, "You got to wait till next year if you're a Giants fan?" He said, "Yeah." And the rest of the crew started laughing. They went to commercial. That's how bad the New York Giants played in that first half. But give them credit. They stuck it out in the end. And Brian Daboll has his first victory as the coach of the Men in Blue.
We'll see if Barkley's back. But the thing is that he has to stay healthy. So, so far, so good with him. Now, in the next game, in the trenches, in those 3 o'clock games, we're throwing one here in the AFC West. You got the Chargers beating the Raiders 24-19. This is actually a pretty interesting game. Now, the Raiders actually had a little mini comeback. Justin Herbert had 3 touchdowns, 279 yards, and he, joined some pretty good company. It's his 14th career game with 3+ touchdown passes, and he only trails, of course, Pat Mahomes, of course, still active, and Kurt Warner and Dan Marino for most such games with players in their first 35 career games. Derek Carr had 2 touchdowns but had 3 interceptions, so that definitely didn't help the Raiders in that sense. Josh Jacobs rushed for 57 yards. Sort of a running back by committee for the Chargers. They together rushed for 76 yards. But yeah, this was actually a pretty interesting game. I mean, like I said, in the second half, Raiders kind of picked it up, but those interceptions by Carr and also a few other things, they're kind of, got the Raiders in the end there.
Yeah, I watched the majority of this game live via this computer screen, just like you did. And we told you it was going to be a good game. I didn't think we were going to get the classic like we did at the end of this regular season last year. But as you mentioned, the Raiders shot themselves with turnovers, especially early. Derek Carr, I thought, forced a couple of bad throws, which cost them at the end. The offensive line was terrible. As we told you guys during the preseason, we call them the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles on this show, but the LA Chargers defense was going to improve. Khalil Mack showed up yesterday. I think he had 3 sacks in all yesterday. He was very active. Joey Bosa was very active as well. So, and that secondary for the Chargers is going to be something special. So you guys better watch out for that. But on the flip side, offensively for the Chargers, Justin Herbert is quickly becoming a top 5 quarterback in this league. And he showed that yesterday. Did you see that touchdown pass to Gerald Everett in the left corner in the end zone? That was spectacular.
Yeah, that cut the tippy toes inbound. So that was that's sort of like a little bit of a dance move there by him. But yeah, so a big win for the Chargers in that division, and that's going to be a very competitive division. So we'll get to that in a second. But the Vikings beat the Packers 23-7. They couldn't get the offense going. I'm talking about the Packers. I mean, Aaron Jones rushed for 49 yards. AJ Dillon had 45. Rodgers was 22 for 34. I should say 195 yards and an interception. Lots of drops. And look, on the flip side, though, Kirk Cousins threw for 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook had 90 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson had 184 yards and caught 2 touchdowns. Both those touchdown passes from Cousins. So, just like I said, just couldn't get the offense going. I know that Harrison Smith also had an interception too. That was that interception that Rodgers threw. But I also want to, call folks that look, the Bucs kicked the Packers' butts last year. in the opener, and look what happened there. So I know a lot of Bears fans want to, talk a little trash, but I would say, look what happened last year. I know it's not the same team, of course. Adams gone, Davante Adams gone, and such, but this is still Aaron Rodgers is still Green Bay. I know, and also too, they had a lot of guys that didn't play either. So let's kind of let's slow it down a little bit there, folks.
You can't really blame this on the Green Bay defense, even though they don't have the same personnel as they did a year ago, because one, you had to pay Aaron Rodgers to come back and play. But it was all about, as you mentioned, the offense for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is still going to take him some time to get used to these wide receivers. We talked about this during the preseason in training camp. He was yelling at guys. People had a problem with it. I know he still wants a Super Bowl or two before he calls it a day as far as his career is concerned. But yesterday, you mentioned with all the drops and the miscommunication and the timing of it, those things take time, and people think that stuff when you gel together, things take time. You got to learn a new playbook, have new personnel, and the terminology of these plays. So these things take time. I know some folks don't want to hear it. You expect it to play like your Madden video game, but things just does not happen overnight. These things take time.
Real quick, because we grew up going up against Kansas City and Arizona.
Well, if you CBS, you wanted to puke yesterday.
Yeah, you had your top team there in Arizona. Not much ever from Arizona. I know. Look, I know. Rondell Moore was out for the Cardinals, of course. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the season. You gotta think that's probably gonna be a deterrent for them these first few weeks. I mean, okay, yeah. Pat Mahomes threw for 5 touchdowns, 360 yards, ho hum. Kelsey, caught the 121 rushing yards receiving yards, I should say, as such. Okay, 3 sacks, by the defense. Yippee! Like, okay, ho hum. Let's move on.
Yeah, and real quick, I know some of you folks that are watching ESPN, I'm sure they're telling you in so many slick ways that, Kansas City doesn't need Tyreek Hill. They don't need Tyreek Hill. Check with us later in the season when we got more games on our belt. I'll leave it at that. Now, on to the Sunday night football game. The Dallas Cowboys not only lose the game, but they lose their star quarterback at Dak Prescott. He injured his thumb late in the game last night. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady and company, dominated the Dallas Cowboys in the Jerry's world, 19-3. Brady, 212 yards and a touchdown pass. Leonard Fournette, who came into training camp overweight and out of shape, he had 21 carries for 127 yards. And Mike Evans, no, not the actor from Good Times, he had 5 catches for 71 yards in a beautiful OBJ-like touchdown catch.
Yeah, also Devin White had both those sacks for the Bucks. And look, I've seen people say that Jimmy G, they should think about getting Jimmy Garoppolo. After the performance against the Bears yesterday, I'm not trading Jimmy G. And 2, I still thought he would waive his no trade clause to go to Dallas. Dallas has other issues besides quarterback. Of course, Cooper Rush will be taking over there for the time being. It's for 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, for Dak. Ezekiel Elliott, 52 rushing yards. Didn't really do too much. Wasn't really a factor. Only rushed for 7 of those yards. That was the longest. It's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, here we go. Now, as far as the Bucks are concerned, I mean, look, they look good. I mean, I know some people were kind of wondering, like, will the Bucks sort of be the Bucks? Look, I know Brady got sacked a couple of times, but he kind of got it going. I know Leonard Fournette kind of picked up for rush yards, kept the change moving for them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, your Cowboys scoring only 3 points. That's the second fewest points total they scored in the season opener in franchise history. The only time they did that, was they were shut out in their 89 opener. That was when Troy Aikman was the quarterback and made his debut, and also when Jimmy Johnson made his head coach debut in 89. So, but a little different times here in Dallas.
Yeah, but of course, we have one more game on the schedule. That's tonight on Monday Night Football on ABC and ESPN. Is Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks. Is the return of Russell Wilson. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck will make their debut on Monday Night Football tonight. Quickly, Lakeena, your studs and duds from week 1.
All right. My stud, Justin Herbert, of course. 3 touchdown passes and such. That's one of my studs. Brian Daboll, the head coach from New York, went for it. Got 1 for 2, got the win, and now he danced too, apparently. So I guess
I saw that.
That was that was interesting there. Let's see, what's another stud here. I'll go a little off the grid here for my third stud. That's Chris Collinsworth. He powered through that broadcast last night.
Yeah, he sounded like he lost his voice. Yeah.
Well, the game was terrible, but he powered on through it with a sore throat. So it's not COVID related. I'm sure he wanted to make sure that was known to folks. But yeah, those are my three studs.
And quickly, my three studs, I'll give a bonus one. Number 88 for the Saints, who blocked that kick yesterday to preserve the win over the Falcons. Of course, the Bears defense, Justin Jefferson from Minnesota, and Jalen Hurts from Philadelphia.
All right, my duds, Arizona. Where was the effort?
Yeah.
Against the Chiefs? I know it's the Chiefs. You're probably like, well, you might be right at that level once you guys are at full strength and whatnot. Once your defense got going, I know you got a lot of new players and such, but come on now. Let's see, another dud. For anybody that watched that that Indianapolis Houston game, going for the tie, really, Lovie Smith? No. And the old line for the Bengals, really, you gave up 7 sacks. We went through this last year, folks, and that's what got you in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my three duds quickly. The whole Cincinnati team, the Raiders offense, and the Carolina Panthers. Those are my three duds.
All right, and that is our studs and duds for NFL Week 1. We'll probably preview a little bit of the Monday night game, and if we have time a little bit later on, because I really want to kind of break down that game. But we've got a lot to do coming up next. We got Nick Murawski, who is back from the Locked On Sox podcast. Of course, some. It was a day for unders and underdogs too in college football. Of course, we'll give a shout out to 2 new U.S. Open champions. We'll also preview the Monday night matchup. Easy for me to say as Russell Wilson makes his return to Seattle. So a lot to do coming up next. Lakeena and McGee, Sidney Brown, SZC Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Busy hour 2 coming up right after this.
At a time when the news seems as subjective as the partisan politics dividing this country, independent professional journalism has become a resource people need to get the honest and accurate information for their lives. That's why I created JQuinnReports.com. As a born and raised Chicagoan, I know this city better than anyone. So my investigative stories are all original, and they'll go deeper to expose the truth by using information obtained from public information databases and in-depth interviews with the movers and shakers. My feature stories will introduce you to people and businesses who are changing the world, not just Chicago. My missing person stories will spotlight those who you don't hear about in the mainstream media, who are often overlooked. If you want to hear my personal views on things around the world, check out my blog site, which is based off of factual information and my life experiences. There's also past episodes of my weekly sports podcast show, What's Up Cuz, that I host with my real-life cousin, Lance Urban. So if you're looking for all this information and more, check out JQuinnReports.com and follow me on Twitter at JQuinn.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
For every generation, it has started with the call to serve. Discovering the purpose and the belonging earned with the title. Learning to dig deep and push through adversity together. Defending our nation and its people. It is a life of great worth and reward. But Marines are never really finished serving. Their commitment comes full circle, visible in communities across our country. This is Semper Fidelis, always faithful. always marine, marking a path for the next generation.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the hashtag Bears Victory Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You have any questions or comments during our last 60 minutes of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, especially for our next guest? You can always go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But we must remind you once again that you can also now catch Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV. That's right. You already have a Roku television. Just tap into the sports folder and download Sports Zone Chicago that way. If you don't have a Roku television, that's okay. You have a streaming device or two laying around. So make sure you download that Roku TV app and get access Sports Zone Chicago that way. Liam Hendricks is excited. You should be as well. Get with the squad. Get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of Second City Sports for this Monday edition by discussing the 72-69 Chicago White Sox. As I said, Lakeena, the White Sox cannot let us go. And so they're still in this thing. They're 2.5 games behind the Cleveland Guardians in the AL Central race. To help us talk about the Southside Hitman, let's welcome on to our program for the first time. He's the host of the Locked On White Sox podcast. You can download that podcast wherever you get your podcast. And he's also the co-host of his other podcast, Good Guys Talk Back, with co-host Pat Hester. Here comes the one and only, the marvelous Nick Murawski. Nick, welcome to our show, my man. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Despite Sunday's loss, I'm doing really well right now.
Yeah, yeah. We won't talk about too much about Sunday's loss, but with the 7-game road trip, Nick, with the White Sox, I expected them to go forward there because, let's be honest here, the Sox are they're a station-to-station team. They've been playing average all year. I expected an average record, but they surprised us with a 5-2 record. It should have been 6-1, but I'll take 5-2, still 2.5 games out with a little bit over 3 weeks left to go in the season.
Yeah, when the Sox went into Seattle was playing very good baseball. They were on a 7-game winning streak. I think they just swept Cleveland, and heading to the West Coast has been a problem for the White Sox for so many years. It doesn't matter what the records are for the Athletics or for the Mariners, or whether it's, the Angels. It's difficult for the Sox to head out to the West Coast and play good baseball. And the way they won, they came alive in that one game after the 6th inning, kept grinding, kept fighting, kind of stole a victory from Seattle, and then going into Oakland and doing what they did. Now, I understand Oakland, 40 games under 500. They've pretty much, been eliminated, but still, that's a difficult place to play for the Sox in the Coliseum. And, some lopsided victories. One of the most amazing games on Friday. I could not believe it. A lot of folks probably went to bed thinking, this team is just not going to pull it out tonight. And they came alive. Sunday, unfortunate, but very difficult to sweep a team, especially Oakland, 4 games. I think it hasn't happened since maybe 1987 for the White Sox. So I'm very happy with a 5-2 record on that West Coast trip.
Well, they could have easily split with the A's. Let's remember that, Nick. But the whole thing with the Sox, I mean, they've seemed like they have played better under Miguel Cairo. Tony La Russa as a pacemaker. He might be back by the end of the season. He might before the end of the season. He might not. What's the status there? What are your sources telling you?
Everything that I, read, and you follow accounts like Bob Nightingale, who seems to have an ear with the organization, John Heyman. It sounds like La Russa really wants to get back. He wants to get back in the dugout. He wants to manage. However, the team, of course, hasn't cleared him to manage. And I just, I want him to get healthy. It's not a situation of, I think the team is going to absolutely crumble if he comes back and to the dugout and starts managing again. But there is something different happening with this ball club. You can hear it, you can see it. The quotes that they have been giving, from Liam Hendricks to Romy Gonzalez to Elvis Andrus, and what the chemistry's been like. I don't know why they're all of a sudden hitting a ton of home runs and have power numbers, but hey, I wish Tony La Russa well. I hope he gets healthy. Health is extremely important. He has recognized that. It sounds like he is going to be kind of traveling back to Chicago, but there's something magical happening with Miguel Cairo, and I kind of just don't want to change that recipe right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick, on that. And speaking of the White Sox, how did you think they handled this Tony La Russa situation? We know how it got started with that. Now, I think 2 weeks ago tomorrow, that against Kansas City, of course, Lucas Giolito was starting that game. He said he found out via the scoreboard, and other players found out via social media. And I kind of found it weird the way the White Sox handled it. It was in the beginning, it was just a mess all around. How did you think the Sox handle it then, and how they handling it now? With
I agree with you. When I heard from Andrew Vaughn that he found out through Twitter that Tony La Russa was going to have to go on medical leave, and then you heard other players, Giolito and Gavin Sheets, talk about that. I found that to be very strange, and the way they crafted that statement, the Chicago White Sox, that press release, very odd. Again, there's just been this family talk over the last couple of years with Tony La Russa, and they wore those shirts that said family. And, obviously Tony La Russa, a very important part of this organization in Jerry Reinsdorf's eyes. So for there not to be a statement directly from Kenny Williams or Rick Hahn, or even Jerry Reinsdorf, to the players, this is what's going on right now with, our manager, with Tony La Russa, because this was a big situation. We're finding out that this was a serious, undergoing procedure. And for them to find out the way they found out, I think it really rattled them. And I think you saw that in that first game against the Royals. I don't think they knew what was happening, and they couldn't concentrate on the game. And then, obviously we saw what happened with the rest of that series, and then the Minnesota series. But how they're handling it right now is, I think I like the transparency now of giving us a little bit more information regarding where he's at, and again, respecting his privacy, but also giving, I guess, the fan base and everybody else following this situation more of a glimpse of this is where he's at. He was allowed to speak to the media in Oakland on Sunday, and things are uncertain. He's relying on experts, and but I think Miguel Cairo also needs to know where he stands too, and maybe those conversations are being had, behind the curtains that we don't know about. But just clarity, open and honest communication as best as possible with regarding to privacy. But I guess we'll see. It seems like this is just going to be an ongoing thing. I just hope it's not a distraction, and that is something that Tony La Russa did say on Sunday. I just don't want to be a distraction to this team.
How big of an addition has Elvis Andrus been for the Sox? I mean, he's definitely been kind of keeping the Sox in games or putting them ahead. How big of an addition has he been for the team?
Huge. It was kind of a no-brainer, right? When Tim Anderson went down, Sox needed some middle infield help. Oakland Athletics clearly in a spot where they aren't going to be playing veteran players. They're looking to get young, and it wasn't that Elvis Andrus couldn't play anymore. It's just Oakland wasn't going to give him playing time. And with, I think, respect to him, it's like, we're going to, release you and hopefully set you up for success with the team. And a great addition. I mean, what he has done in that leadoff spot with the power too, and the way he can play defense. And what I enjoy so much about him is he is kind of an infield captain, and sometimes he'll go over and he will have conversations with a pitcher and just check in and, just make sure he's on the same page. I think he brings a calming presence to a young infield. I mean, Romy Gonzalez, very fresh at second base. He's been getting a lot of playing time over there. I've been very happy, and I love the stuff that he has said, and you could tell in his recent quotes, especially under Miguel Cairo, the fun that he's experiencing right now with guys stepping up, get each other's backs. He's been a huge breath of fresh air.
Nick Murawski, co-host of the Good Guys Talk Bat podcast, a White Sox podcast, and the main host of the Locked On White Sox podcast, is hanging out with us on the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the 11 color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena hanging out here with you. Nick, let's talk about Eloy Jimenez. I know Lakeena, as you well know, she likes it when the clips of Eloy's play on left field, especially hanging in the net. I know she's rolling her eyes right now. she thinks that he's not so well of a gold glover. He's a black glover when it comes. There's a hole in his glove and in left field. But I want to talk about his bat ever since he returned from his injury, especially in the second half. He's batting .363 with 9 home runs. He almost hit another one out yesterday. But talk about Eloy Jimenez. He should be in the DH role from now until the end of the season at least.
I agree with you, and we're even starting to now have those 2023 conversations, right, of what are the Sox going to do in the offseason. You've got a lot of question marks with Jose Abreu and Gavin Sheets, but I love that the White Sox are playing him in the DH spot right now. Limit any type of injuries that he possibly can occur out there in left field. We don't need him for his glove, okay? We need it from his bat. And he is up there with some of Major League Baseball's best in the second half of this season. It's just been impressive. And I think he feels comfortable knowing where he fits into the lineup. He made some statements maybe a month ago in a great James Fegan article in The Athletic about how it's been difficult for him to take, days off to rest his hamstring. And he wasn't sure when is he going to play. You play a game, you've got 2 games off or the other way around. And for him to get in a groove, playing consistently every single day, he gets his swing back. And now you see the confidence and the danger that he has late in the game. He can get a rally going. He can tack on runs, and that disrupts the whole lineup. He is a feared hitter right now, and that makes other guys better around him. So you got to keep him healthy. You got to keep him in the lineup, and that's the DH spot for sure.
Is Dylan Cease a favorite for AL Cy Young?
I think so. I really do. I know Justin Verlander has some better numbers, specifically ERA right now, but he's also on the IL. What Dylan Cease did in that 14-2 game was really impressive. They talked about it in the telecast, how tough it is to pitch in a blowout game, because you can lose your focus. You can feel, well, I can let a couple runs slide. It's not that big of a deal. But for him to put a goose egg up the way he did, stayed focused, I think he gets it. The every one of these starts now is very important. And I'm wondering if also, because the White Sox, every start for them the rest of this way out is extremely important. 21 games left in the season. Every one of these games is important, which means he has got to pitch almost like it's a playoff game atmosphere, for his next start, which I think is against the Rockies on Wednesday, game 2 of the series. I put him as the favorite for what he's been able to do. And again, but I'm a diehard Sox fan, but his numbers are impressive. He's over 200 strikeouts now for the year. A shame that he lost that no hitter. I can't believe it.
I was there, and trust me, I wanted to cry just like everybody else.
Heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But he's a guy that I always thought had obviously the dangerous pitches and what he's able to do with his slider. But he throws a lot of pitches, and I feared he might not be able to see the 9th inning, because sometimes he'll rack up 70 pitches after 4 innings, and he might not be able to go the distance. Now he's starting to figure out, hey, I don't have to strike everybody out. I can pitch to contact. I need to figure out what teams are doing against me. They don't want to go 2 strikes against me because they know how dangerous I can be, and use that to your advantage. I thought that was a great sign. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way we wanted it in that Minnesota game, but how he bounced back against Oakland. And yes, I put him in right up there. He's the favorite now.
Halfway home with our guy Nick Murawski, host of the Locked On White Sox podcast, right here on the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color on Sports on Chicago. Sid, Lakeena hanging out with you. Nick, his last 2 starts were okay. We'll take them because we're in the pennant race, but minus COVID, let me repeat again, minus COVID from early in the year. What's wrong with Lucas Giolito?
From what I have read and what I have watched, he, I feel like, is trying to recorrect some mechanics and almost reinvent himself on the fly during a season, which is extremely difficult to do. It's tough to do in the off season. You got to have a lot of eyes on you. Pitching is all about a repeatable motion. Steve Stone talks about that. And if you can't have that, then you're lost, because these Major League Baseball hitters will pick up on any little difference, and you're essentially tipping pitches without really tipping pitches. So I think he has made comments, Lucas Giolito has, about, well, maybe it wasn't the best thing to put on the weight, the muscle, how I did it, and he quickly got injured. And he's now started, I think, to try to get back to some previous years in terms of mechanics, and have to alter his way of pitching to get back to that. But that's tough to do in season. So I think we're seeing, him working things out in starts. And again, that start he had on Friday, 6 innings, 3 earned runs. But you got to say to yourself, well, this was the Oakland team that barely scored anything the night before. How did they get quickly 3 runs? And when you compare him to guys like Cease, and you kind of throw away Johnny Cueto's start on Sunday, we're expecting something more from Giolito, because he gave us that a couple years ago, right? He showed us already what he could be, and we're holding him to that standard, and we haven't seen it. I think it's a mechanical thing. He's got the stuff right. I know he works a lot on his mental health, which is so important, and controlling his emotions. And I think he's going to have to spend the offseason to get back, into form.
When is Tim Anderson supposed to come back? Right, we're hearing like maybe this week, maybe next week, because I know that Andrews has been, kind of picking up the slack, but they never really need him down the stretch if they want to try to get back to the top of the AL Central.
Yeah, I believe he's seeing a hand specialist on Tuesday to see if and when he can return. I originally heard, September 20th or September 23rd, and then I heard, well, maybe it could be this week. Again, he's going to see this specialist, and we'll see how that goes. It has been odd. He hasn't been around, and the Sox have caught fire. And to the previous point, Elvis Andrus has stepped up. Romy Gonzalez has stepped up in terms of production. I don't know if Tim Anderson will ever be a guy that wins a Gold Glove at shortstop, but we sure need his bat. He gets on base. He can catch fire at the top of the lineup. The fact that the Sox have been able to stay more than afloat, but really put some quality baseball together the last couple of weeks, has been important. So we'll see what happens. I don't think you want to rush him back, even if he's like 60 or 70%. I don't know if you're going to want to force him back. So I'm hoping for great news, that he can, engage in baseball activities, grip a bat, swing, field, all that stuff. But I think we have to wait a little bit on that news.
Speaking of another bat, Jose Abreu, what can you say about him? I know he has 15 home runs and 44 RBIs, if I'm reading this correctly. Yeah, but 66 RBIs, I should say, not 44. 66 RBIs, but he's batting .310. What more can he do at this point? I know he's a free agent at the end of the year. I know his numbers were a little bit better than this last year because of the players in front of him were doing their job, and they were healthy. But what more can you say about Mr. Pito?
Jose Abreu is a guy that I believe will have his number retired. He will have a statue out on the concourse. He has meant so much to this organization than I think we actually realize, and what he has helped, how he has helped certain players, younger guys that have come to the organization. His numbers aren't where we have seen them traditionally, power numbers for sure. I mean, And I wonder if he's kind of thinking about his future as this season goes along. He is the Iron Man for the White Sox. He does not want to be out of a lineup. I think he's gotten so much better at first base. And instead of being that power hitter that we're used to, and let's be honest, nobody on the White Sox team is really, crushing it in terms of the power numbers. But Jose has always been that standard, 20 home runs or so, 100 RBIs, and we're probably not going to see that. It's going to be a stretch. But his average is there, and he's hitting the ball. He's become kind of what Paul Konerko was late in his career, where Konerko didn't have those power numbers, but he still was a professional hitter. He would have an inside out swing that would take a ball to right field with a guy on second. And he would say, you know what, I'm not going to drive the ball in the gap, but I'm going to advance this guy over. I'm going to have a quality at bat. He has a ton of value still for this team right now. Moving forward is the question, though. That's I think that's a big question mark for the White Sox. I'm wondering what they're going to do, what value they have with him. Andrew Vaughn's your future at first base. Like we had mentioned with Eloy Jimenez, I think right now Eloy Jimenez is the front runner for DH in 2023. Where does that leave Jose Abreu? So big questions, but you can't overlook what he has meant to this organization. And I just hope he can stay healthy for this final stretch here. And boy, how great would it be for the Sox to win the AL Central, and Jose Abreu is helping them lead the charge.
Well, and last question from me, Nick. Can they win the NL Central? They got these 2 games against Colorado starting tomorrow, finishing up that little home and home there. Then they got that makeup game against Cleveland on Thursday. Then they go at Detroit. Then they play Cleveland again at home. Then they play Detroit again at home. Then they go at Minnesota. So they got to play Minnesota again, and they got to go at San Diego. Then come back here to finish up the season. He's in hosting Minnesota to finish it up. Can they win the AL Central?
They can win the AL Central, absolutely. It's they should have been buried a long time ago, by the way. And players like Liam Hendriks they'll own up to that. The way that the Sox have played baseball for majority of this year, they should have been long forgotten a long time ago. But nobody seems to have really wanted to win this AL Central. The Guardians and the Twins have allowed the Sox to hang in there. The Sox have caught fire recently. They're playing a different brand of baseball. A switch is flipped. I still have them winning the AL Central. I think they're going to pull it out. 4 left with the Guardians, 6 with the Twins, but it's going to be close. I mean, it's going to come down, I think, to the final 2 games. And I think the Sox mentality is you can't expect anything from the Guardians. Don't expect them to help you out. The Sox just have to focus on their business, take care of their own business, 1 game at a time. Try not to look ahead and see, we've got Detroit this weekend. No. 1 game at a time. Colorado, or don't look at that Guardians game yet, that makeup game on Thursday. Take care of business at home. These 2 games, 1 game at a time. We got Colorado. It's a whole team effort. We're talking about starting pitching, bullpen. Everybody's got to do their job. But yes, I think they can win the AL Central.
Last question from me, Nick. I want to focus in on the White Sox bullpen. Not so much Liam Hendriks. He's been doing the job all year, but that middle relief, Aaron Bummer's back. He saw some action in the last couple of games of this Oakland series. But talk about Reynaldo Lopez, a former starter who had his moments, but this season he's been doing the job as your 6th and 7th inning guy.
I like Lopez a lot, and who would have thought you were going to be saying that a couple of years ago? He was just a different pitcher. He had some corrective eye surgery that we became aware of, fixed some mechanics, cleaned some things up. He's come into some high level situations. His velocity is 98, sometimes 99 miles per hour. He's pitched in some great opportunities, and I'm very happy where he's at right now, and I love that he is as a weapon out of the bullpen for the White Sox. The bullpen, it can be shaky. It's hit or miss sometimes. It's definitely not the type of bullpen we thought it was going to be entering this season. But guys like Jimmy Lambert, Ronaldo Lopez, very reliable for the Sox these days.
Mhm. All right, that was Nick Murawski. He's the co-host of the Good Guys Talk Back podcast, a White Sox podcast with Pat Hester, and he's the host of the Locked On White Sox podcast. You can get both those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes for both are out today, so go and support this young man. Nick, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I wanted to say this publicly. It was nice meeting you and your wife and your young son out of the games earlier this season. Are you going to go to any more before the season's out, or will it be determined how the White Sox finish this thing?
Oh, I've got still tickets in the old season ticket package. Actually, Tuesday, I'm going to try to take my little boy maybe for a couple innings. Just the fact that they're back in town, and then I do have tickets for the last game of the year against the Twins. So I still have some more games, and weather sometimes plays a role. But
yeah,
again, I think it's going to be exciting down the stretch. So I'm planning to still be out there at 35th and Shields.
Yeah, hopefully the last series against Minnesota means something. So we'll see how it shapes out. Once again, great job. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Much continued success, and we're looking forward to having you back on again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you both so very much. Go Sox. And
yes.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be talking postseason. There you go.
Yes.
Nick.
You got it.
Thanks, Nick. Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.
All right. Once again, that's Nick Murawski, the host of the Locked On White Sox podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Once again, at Nick_GGTB. That's Good Guys Talk Back. That's his other podcast that he hosts with Pat Hester. Lakeena, we got to cool off a bit. We got to come back and finish strong. We got to talk about week 2 in college football. Somebody got their pink slip and link card. Of course, there were some upsets. We got to talk about some other sports happenings, and time permitting, yours surely has an interesting anniversary for Old School TV Monday. Let's do that and a whole lot more as you're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
60 now to the line. One by enemy compound. Elevation 4703 feet. Push immediate. Anything in that building is a target. Copy that. Cleared hot, cleared hot. Yeah, type 1 control bomb on target. Okay, that's all I needed.
There are a few who move toward the sounds of chaos, ready to respond at a moment's notice. And when the time comes, they are the first to move toward the sounds of tyranny, injustice, and despair. They are forged in the crucible of training. They are the few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the hashtag Bears Victory Monday edition. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
We got less than a half hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk radio show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, it was an interesting week in week 2 of college football. Scott Frost, now the ex-head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, got his pink slip and link card. They lose to Georgia Southern at home. How could that happen? And I want to start off with this classic game. I did get a chance to watch the fourth quarter of this game. Number 1, Alabama gets by Texas in the big state, 20-19. Texas suffered a big sack on their drive on third down toward the end of the game, which it forced them to kick a field goal instead of going for the touchdown. But Bryce Young and the Alabama Crimson Tide, they know how to get it done. They've been in tough and key situations before, and last Saturday's win was another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama, this is like I said, this is a big game for big Saturday for unders and underdogs. In this case, you got Georgia Southern from the Sun Belt beating Nebraska and such. Now, this was just, I don't know how that happened, but that's a whole different thing. We'll get to it in a second because we gotta get it. We gotta go do this rapid fire, Sid, because like I said, I don't, but. Now, as far as the Alabama game, I mean, look, I don't know who was, I forgot who it was that from Texas that was supposed to tackle Bryce Young, but he's gonna be having a very sleepless nights with that missed sack and such. So Alabama is not beatable. They definitely are beatable, and I think Texas kind of showed you the blueprint. Quinn Ewers, who was their star prep star quarterback, true freshman, got to Texas early. Unfortunately got hurt. He's going to be gone for a couple of months. Who knows what would have happened had he stayed there and stayed healthy, because they were beating them pretty well with them. But like I said, I don't think Alabama. Look, Georgia knocked them out, as it should have been. Georgia should have been the number 1 team coming out of the gates this year. But like I said, I feel about preseason polls and such. But it is what it is. So look, I know. Look, Texas, I think showed a little bit of a fight. They were right there. Could have won that game. Probably should have won that game. But
yeah, it should have won that game.
It is what it is. But it's well. Look, like I said, I think Alabama is showing you that they are holes. So, and Texas is supposed to that. Now, look, Georgia beat Stanford, which is supposed to an FCS team. They beat Stanford. Ohio State, of course, they beat Arkansas State. Michigan, despite having to wait a little bit because of weather delays, beat Hawaii pretty handily. Clemson, beat Furman pretty easily. Probably one of the biggest upsets. Appalachian State, it seems to be a decent week for the Sun Belts. They upset Texas A&M. This is their second time beat a top 10 team. Of course, you got to go all the way back to 2007 when they beat Michigan.
Yep.
at Ann Arbor. So that's. I mean, there really nothing else you can say about that one. Like I said, I'm sure Jimbo Fisher will be smarting there. Marshall, that's the second time their school history beating the top 10 team being Notre Dame. They should not have been in the top 10, but again, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman 0-2. All the love for him is now gone.
Well, he was 0-3 too. Remember too, they lost to Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl. And I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Kayvon LeBron from Marshall. Had 31 carries for 163 yards and a touchdown. He definitely propelled them, the Thundering Herd, to that victory. He was driving Uber last year, so he wasn't even in college. So the fact that he got a chance to get a scholarship, to Marshall, and then was a big reason why they were able to pull off this upset against Notre Dame. I mean, this is sort of this has been a proud program and such. Marshall is, so this is sort of like a big win for that program and such. So it's definitely kind of one of those things. As far as Notre Dame, like I said, they're like near the tail end. Charles Huff, a name that some of you probably have heard of. He played in the NFL for years, been a college coach the last few years. Look, if you saw his presser afterwards, I mean, his guys were intimidated by coming to South Bend, and they weren't. So good for them.
Yeah, good for them. That was a great story for that young man from Marshall. To be driving Uber and then now to star on a team that upset one of the historic teams in the country. That's just a great story for that young man. Lakeena, Wisconsin, we talked about them last year. They got out to a terrible start and they rallied to have a successful season. They took a step back on Saturday. They lost to Washington State in Madison, 17-14. To the Washington
Yeah.
State Cougars.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of one of those things. Jake Dickert, this is his first full year. We talked about what happened to that program and some of like the sort of like the transitions that they had. We'll go to his home state of Wisconsin and beats Wisconsin. That's not at Camp Randall. That's not an easy place to play. That's not an easy thing to do. And sort of one of those, again, it's sort of one of those things where look, that defense for Washington State definitely kind of kept the Badgers at bay. So good for them. It's just their second win against a top 10 team and such. So big win for the Cougs and for the Pac-12, because I'm sure there were some those about the Pac-12, but look, a nice win for them. Baylor beats BYU, I should say, beats Baylor in a 2 overtime thriller. Baylor left a lot of points on the board. So I think that's sort of like a thing. Now, some people say could BYU somehow sneak into the college football playoff. They've got a pretty tough schedule. They got to go at Oregon this Saturday. So, well, actually, they got to go at Oregon this Saturday. That's going to be a tough game. They got to go at Notre Dame, and also they host Arkansas. So they still got a lot to do here, and plus their schedule isn't gonna propel them to that. But a nice win for them at home, kind of like a little payback for what Baylor did to them last year. Wake Forest beats Vanderbilt. That was gonna be a tough game for them. They were able to pull that out. Ole Miss beat Central Arkansas. NC State beats Charleston Southern in the second annual Johnny Majors Bowl. Of course, Tennessee and Pittsburgh. That was a thrilling game. Tennessee, I should say, beats Pittsburgh. They came back. Tennessee did, and they were able to get the game. Tie the game, I should say. Pittsburgh and force overtime, and it was our defense that kind of finished them off for them.
Yeah. Kentucky beat Florida 26-16. As we talked about on Friday, Lakeena, could Florida keep up the momentum of holding off Utah the previous week? The answer was no. Kentucky went into the swamp and did their job. So I know they're ranked number 20 right now. You think they'll jump up for a couple of spots? And locally, Duke beat Northwestern in Evanston. Northwestern couldn't pass the ball. They had 2 huge turnovers. That was the difference in the game. In the final line, Brett Bielema, they beat Virginia handily down in Champaign.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected that, but
I didn't.
going back to Northwestern, the Northwestern Duke game. I mean, Northwestern had 2 weeks off, so I don't know what the heck happened there. It was the first time Duke's gone 2-0 since 2018, so that was a nice win for them in that program and such. I mean, look, Northwestern made it go at it late. It was a fumble and such, and that I'm sure he's going to be smarting over that one. But Mike Elko, who took over for the Duke program, I'm sure that's a big win for him. That's not an easy place to play at Ryan Field. And let's not. There was one more game I wanted to mention before we move on. What was it? I forgot. But yeah, I mean, look, like I said, it was like a lot of unders. The Battle of Iowa. Iowa State beats Iowa 10-7. Of course, Iowa scored a touchdown. Their offense scored a touchdown. I mean, I didn't think they were allowed to do that, but after what happened, their game against South Dakota State a couple of weeks ago. But unfortunately, they couldn't get it going. After that, I mean, it was actually Iowa State's defense that kind of helped them out there for the Cyclones. It's their first one, I think, in like 5 years since Matt Campbell's been there. He had been 0 for 4, I think, playing Iowa State in the Cy-Hawk Classic, if you will. So that's actually a nice win for him. Like I said, this is definitely a Saturday for unders and unders. So if you took the under in a lot of games, you actually had a pretty good Saturday in a lot of these games. So also Mickey Joseph, of course, who takes over for Scott Frost as an interim. He's actually the first black head coach ever at Nebraska. And I was actually I'm not actually surprised, but I'm not surprised. But yeah, so we'll
This is
I'm sure
the
he'll
same
get a shot.
thought process I had. Yeah, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
In any sport?
Yeah, that's a little weird to me. But apparently,
Yeah.
I guess Dominican Sue, who's a former starter in Nebraska, he 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 kind of put his name out there. Perhaps maybe he could be the next head coach of Nebraska. I don't know if that's gonna happen. But that's actually pretty funny. But yeah, he kind of put it out there on Twitter that, hey, I want to be the next head coach.
Yeah, our guy Lamont Scott checking in via Facebook. He says, first time LSU versus Southern in 100 years. We'll see what Brian Kelly does. We mentioned it on Friday, Lakeena, with our girl Christine Manica. Brian Kelly was in some hot water after losing the opening game on Labor Day. And we didn't expect LSU to be in the national title race. You expected it to be better. There's still some time, but he's got to change that situation in a hurry.
Yeah, he really does. And like I said, I think losing to Florida State the way they did, I think that probably didn't help him there as for that, but again, I mean, I'm sure they'll figure it out, but it's a little crazy that whole thing. But yeah, the fake accent, that can only get you so far there. But yeah, you beat Southern. It's okay.
That reminds me
fine.
of, you remember that movie Blue Chips, Lakeena? And Nick Nolte was lying to, I want to say, Alfre Woodard's character, the Penny Hardaway's family. I forgot the Butch McRae talking about, I grew up in a Pentecostal, blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, well, I know what you was trying to do, trying to recruit that kid to go play for your school. Yeah, I grew up in a Pentecostal, lying through his teeth. That's what these coaches do to get kids to recruit to go play for them.
Utah with a nice bounce back when they Southern Utah pretty handily. Well, look, I got nothing to say. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like weird, but Miami beat Southern Miss pretty handily. They got to go at Texas A&M. That'll be interesting. I'm sure the Aggies are not going to be in a very good mood there. Air Force beats Colorado in a little sort of like in-state matchup. Memphis beats Navy. Rutgers, they're 2-0, beating Wagner easily. UCLA had a little bit, a little less trouble with Alabama State. Let's see here what else, and yeah, that's about it in the good one. Auburn held off San Jose State. Let's see, I think that's about it. Oregon with another nice bounce back win against Eastern Washington, and yeah, Oregon State stays undefeated. They beat Fresno State with a pretty much in a thrilling game, and Mississippi State pulls away from Arizona.
One more question about college football before we move on. Did you catch Pat McAfee's debut on ESPN's College Game Day? If so, what did you think? Because I missed it.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it's obvious that they're not going to use Coach Lee Corso too much anymore. I wouldn't be surprised. This is probably going to be his last year. I'm talking about Lee Corso. That's probably why they brought back McAfee on a full-time basis. But look, I think he was fine. I mean, like he said, he admits that he doesn't watch a lot of college football. I don't know why he would say that out loud, but okay, sometimes you gotta fake it to make it, as they say. But but look, he was fine. I'm sure he'll be just fine. Like I said, I think also too, I think the Coach Coach, I think this will probably be his last year. I think, or at least they're gonna at least limit him as they are already doing now.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition, hashtag Bears Victory Monday edition. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago. What other sports nuggets and news that you have for us before we close out? We still have a few minutes left.
The U.S. Open, they crowned a couple of new champions at the U.S. Open. We'll start on the women's side. Iris Swiatek, of course. This is her third Grand Slam. She's only like 3/4 of the way through the Grand Slam. Of course, she won the Wimbledon and the French Open, and now she's at the U.S. Open. To her credit, she submits herself number one ranking. She won a trade sets over Ona Jabeur. At 21, she becomes the youngest three-time women's major champion since Maria Sharapova back when she did it at the Aussie Open. We'll see if she can get that career Grand Slam. So so kind of like cementing herself as the sort of the number one player in women's tennis. I know that people are wondering like, what are they gonna, what is it gonna be? But yeah, she's
Hmm.
sort of like and she even admitted that the hard courts wasn't her best surface. In the U.S. Open series, she didn't do very well, so she actually lost like some early rounds. So I would say that she probably is definitely on her way. And look, her game's gotten better, and look, I think she's kind of right there. And
Yeah.
also,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, and also too, Carlos Alcaraz wins his first Grand Slam, beating Casper Ruud. This is a guy who grew up, just idolizing Rafael Nadal, and now he's the second youngest, after Pete Sampras, second youngest player to win a Grand Slam. Well, at the U.S. Open, I should say. So that was a nice room for him. Could this be a change of the guard? I mean, I wouldn't say it just yet because of the fact that, of course, Novak Djokovic couldn't come, because of,
Hmm.
the rules and such. But yeah, but he's the first teenager, I'm talking about Alcaraz, to win a Grand Slam, and since it was first introduced, and also he's the first number one player, the first teenager to become the number one ranked player since the records were introduced all the way back in 1973.
Yeah, congratulations to him, Lakeena. I'll say this. Talk about this just like I talk about in golf all the time. With tennis, I'll talk about who's going to be that next male tennis star in the U.S. to step up. We haven't seen anything close to the likeness of it since Andy Roddick. That was about almost 20 years ago. You mentioned Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. They've been dominating over the last decade and a half or so. But who's going to be that next male tennis star from the USA to dominate? We see it from the ladies all the time. Even though with Serena retiring, Venus probably will be following her very soon. But who's going to be that next star? You need that next star to sell the sport. On the female side, there's no problem. But on the male side, as far as the male American side is concerned, who's going to be that next star?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Like I said, I think Francis Tiafoe, I think he could definitely be right there. I think he will win a
Oh,
Grand Slam. Yeah, I think he will win a Grand Slam. It's a matter of when, not really a matter of when, not if. At this point, I think he's got the game there. He's almost there, but I think he kind of need to improve on some things. He's only 24, so he hasn't reached his peak yet in men's tennis. So I think he'll be okay. Now on the women's side, look, Coco Gauff just turned 18. The pressure's going to start going on her to perhaps maybe win a Grand Slam. She was
I
close.
thought she was going to make a run and win it this year, especially what she did to my girl Madison Keys, but just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah, like I said, she's 18 now, but I think the
Hmm.
pressure, especially now with Serena officially retired, I guess there's going to be like a lot of pressure going to be on her, to try to, get there. So she made the finals at the French, made to the semis at the U.S. Open for the first time. I think it's going to be, like I said, I feel the same thing with her. I think it's going to be a matter of if, not when. When she wins, not if she wins.
Yep. So we'll see what happens there in the world of tennis. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition, live and live in color. I'm Sid. It's Lakeena. Lakeena, you have anything else before we go to Old School TV Monday?
Just breaking news, I guess. Mac Jones. Apparently, the good news is that the next race came out negative, and that is just back spasms. So he might be able to play on Sunday. But the fact that he's 23 and be dealing with back spasms, that's not good. So this could be something to look out for in these next few weeks. I mean, we all know back spasms can come out of nowhere. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And like it's been said, of course, that Prescott officially it will be out 6 to 8 weeks and such. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things there. Mac Jones, the New England Patriots really need him because they have a young average team at best, and I know they made the playoffs last year, but this year it's going to be tougher in the AFC East, as we talked about last week. You saw what Buffalo did on opening night. You saw what Miami did to them yesterday, and so we know the Jets are still terrible. So if Mac Jones is out for any extended period of time, the Patriots are in trouble. And as far as Dallas is concerned, I don't know if they can get by with Cooper Rush at quarterback. I know he upset the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football last year, but if he's going to be there in that lineup close to 2 months, I think Mike McCarthy can say goodbye to his job. It's not all his fault, but we're dealing in the world of professional sports. It's all about wins and losses. If Dallas can't at least keep that record above 500, especially after what Philadelphia did to Detroit yesterday, it's going to be a long year for the Dallas football team.
All right, Sid, we got some time. I can already tell by the green screen, kind of spoiled it for everybody. Old school TV Monday, of course, and we got some time that we're going to try to make sure we got some time during the football NFL season, because we know we had our football power hour and such. But it looks like we're remembering Saved by the Bell, but not the original though. We're going to be remembering Saved by the Bell, the new class, the TNBC show that lasted longer than the original show, if you could believe
Yes,
that.
it did.
Seven seasons on NBC. And, it's sort of one of those things where, and I'll say this and I'll let you go. The first season, I think everyone can agree, they try to do a carbon copy of the old class and the new class. You had the Zach type who talked to the camera. You had like the Slater type character, of course, the Screech type character. Of course, you got the Black Princess and Lisa and Megan Lawson, who looks exactly the same as she did when she first premiered on the that show. Of course, it premiered on actually about 29 years ago. Yesterday, September 11, 1993, on NBC. Its last episode was on January of 2000. I actually stopped watching then by that point because it was just kind of getting kind of old and boring. And so, of course, they had like the feminist, type. But I remember Eve Rubenstein, who was the casting director for Saved by the Bell, both the original and the new class. And she said that they never got it right with the cast of the new class. She said they weren't as talented, not as charismatic. They all, of course, every year they kept, except for the last couple of seasons, they kept like changing, the kids. They never really got it right for the most part. And then she said that was always a big problem, the consistency and the sort of like, keeping that consistency and such. Once we started learning about new characters, like one or two or three people leave, we got to learn whole new characters. It was just kind of it was kind of annoying. I mean, they dealt with issues like the original. They dealt with drinking. They dealt with drugs, steroids and such. They dealt with
dating and all that. Yep.
Yeah, and sexual assault. Well, attempted sexual assault, I should say. So. That, and also they got Dustin Diamond to kind of help. It actually helped bump up the ratings. He came on during the second season, and I remember Dennis Haskins say this in an interview that by those later seasons they had of course he played Mr. Belt in both the original and the new class, and good for him for kind of keeping that going for as long as he did. From all the way back to Good Morning Miss Bliss in the late 80s to now, of course, the new class and finished up in 2000. They had him in Belden and Screech doing like some really like dumb stuff. So I think that kind of turned me off a little bit too. That's why I stopped watching near the end. But say about new class. I mean, look, it was instrumental in that TNBC lineup with California Dreams and Hang Time. So that I mean, like I said, I like the show. I'm a little surprised it's not streaming on Peacock. I'm a little surprised that it isn't, but it had its moments, but if I had to choose, I probably would still prefer the new class.
I got Lamont Scott from
the main show, I should say.
Yeah, our guy Lamont Scott from Facebook checks in. He says, I never watched it because Lark Voorhees, aka the Lisa Turtle, was gone. Yeah, pretty much the original cast was gone. And so, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. The reason why I did this because the anniversary was yesterday, 29 years ago yesterday, that it premiered. It, like you said, set up those shows like California Dreams and City Guys and Hang Time. Those shows would come a couple years later to build that TNBC lineup. But I'm with you. The first couple years, I kind of dug it. We all knew there wasn't going to be like the original cast, but you had to let it grow on its own. Like you said, it started to, but like you said, the casting changes. The storylines were the same, but the casting changes. I remember a couple of the new actors that were held over from the original Saved by the Bell, the new class series. They made a couple of spoofs about it. I can't deal with all these changes and blah blah blah. And then next thing you know, into that, like you say, into that second season, going into that third season of the new class, they started making all these changes, and then the storylines changed, and then some of the stuff just kind of got redundant. I'm with you. I stopped watching the last couple years. I know there were on reruns in the late 90s, early 2000s on USA, but for at least for the first 2.5 years, I really dug that new class. I'm not going to say it was better than the original because it was not. The original stands alone by itself. But the first 2 seasons, I'd say 2.5 seasons, it was very good. But after that, like you said, the casting changes and the redundancy of some of the storylines. What kept that together, like you said, Mr. Belt in the late Screech Powers. And that's what they brought him on for. And it actually set him up for those other shows. So it kind of did its part, not what many people wanted, but some of the viewers still liked it, and it helped keep NBC up afloat in Saturday mornings.
Well, that was yeah. I think that kind of transitioned to some of the other stuff too. And look, I mean,
Mhm.
we saw it. Probably the most famous episode was when Jim Harbaugh, of course, he didn't play for the Indianapolis Colts then. He appeared on the show. I'm sure there were other celebrities that appeared on there. I know that Mark Paul Gosselaar, who played Zach, I think appeared in the first season of that show. I think
Mhm.
Lark Voorhees also appeared on the during the first couple of seasons on that show. So they did try to get some of the old class to come in and such, but I guess it wasn't, it just didn't work. And yeah, look, I thought it was okay, like I said, but
Mhm.
the cast changes, they kept repeating storylines. Like I said, they did a lot of, Dustin Diamond, may continue to rest in peace, but
Mhm.
it just wasn't the same. And I think they tried too hard to make it be like the old class. But once they didn't, they kind of veered away from that. It still wasn't very good. So, like I said, I stopped watching the last couple of years of it. So it was one of those shows that it was good for what it was, but would I put it as in the
Mhm.
classic category? Not really.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And like I said, you could have let it grown after the first couple of years, but like you said, all these changes started happening, and like you said, you lose interest, you lose viewership, and that's exactly what happened. I give them credit for keeping it on for 7 years for other reasons, but it did what it's supposed. It did what it's supposed to do by helping those other shows we just mentioned help stable that Saturday morning lineup. And one quick note: remember Nancy McKeon on Facts of Life
Mhm.
back in the day. Her younger sister, Lindsay McKeon, starred in
Mhm.
the last 4 years of that show of Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Yeah, I really liked her character. So yeah,
Yeah.
I liked her
Hmm.
character. I like a couple of the other characters that were on there, but like I said, I think nothing was going to beat the original class and
Hmm.
such. And I'm kind of sort of like I said. I mean, for what it was, I mean, like I said, it was really like I said, it had its moments, but like I also said too, I mean, nothing was going to touch it. So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
what happens. I mean, hopefully they'll have it on Peacock at some point. I mean, I don't I think they have the original Saved by the Bell, but I don't think they have any of the other. They don't have
Hmm.
the new class. They don't have California Dreams. I'm a little surprised they don't, since they are NBC produced shows. But maybe
Yeah.
they will at some point, since they are trying to get more folks to sign up for Peacock. So maybe that'll change. But yeah, so Saved by the Bell, the new class, like I said, for what it was.
Hmm.
But like I said, if I would put in that mid tier when it comes to top teen
Hmm.
shows.
Yes, the new class, especially. So we salute on the 29-year anniversary premiere of Saved by the Bell, the new class, right here on Second City Sports for Old School TV Monday. Check in next week. We'll have another unsung TV show to salute on Old School TV Monday.
With that said, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Excuse me. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app today, wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you follow us on our podcast at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And make sure you follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Programming note tonight at 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Catch an all-new episode of What's Up Cuz with Lance C. Irving and our guy Jason Palmer. They're going to have Ayo Dosunmu now going to his second year with the Chicago Bulls, and they're going to have former Fighting Illini basketball starting new head coach of Roosevelt University, Mr. D. Brown. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check that out. Let's see. And don't forget, we're also on Roku TV.
Roku!
All right. I want to say whatever device you got, whether it's your smartphone, laptop, smart TV, Chromebook, tablet, whatever, just look it up, just look it up on the app, your respective app store, Sports Zone Chicago. You can check us out anytime you want. You can check out our show, What's Up Cuz, of course, Sean and Maya, and and a whole lot more. I know we got a couple other shows that are going to be flying in as well. Also, speaking of Sean and Maya, make sure you guys check out former Bear QB Eric Kramer. After every Bears game this year, every Monday for mostly, of course, I'm sure there's gonna be some Tuesdays and such, but and Friday and whatnot. Well, I should say Wednesday, and of course, I'm sure it's gonna be like a Friday. I know they have a Thursday night game this year too. I think so.
And the Monday night game against the Patriots later on in the season.
Yeah, so that you can check him out on Wednesdays on that one, and Friday for the Thursday night game. But yeah, for the most part, he will be on Mondays every week. Of course, you watch a replay of that on YouTube and on Roku TV.
Yes, and so catch Eric Kramer every Monday, as Lakeena mentioned, on Sean and Maya in the morning, exclusively right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Make sure you catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as you young folks would say. Catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, I know it's gonna be cool the next couple of days here in Chicago. So get those jackets out already, folks. Sorry,
at least for a couple of days anyway.
Well, yeah, I'll say it'll get back to normal too. But yeah, so maybe unless you actually have to go out, make sure you guys wear a jacket and and such. But but still, stay safe out there. If you're not gonna get vaccinated, wash your hands and be good to each other. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Till then, Dog Bears and Go Sox, holla!